guys, welcome back to another episode of the Millennial Business Podcast. I'm so excited to be joined today by the beautiful Katie. We have connected online. She is doing some absolutely epic stuff for the world in terms of sustainability, in terms of the skincare industry, and I guess the makeup industry. But I don't want to give away too much. So first of all, Katie, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm interested, how did you discover, so the product that you have now, you said it's originally from Japan. Like, how did you come across that? How did you discover it to begin with?
So my brother had been on a snow trip in Japan and I wanted to go, but I couldn't due to work. And at the same time, cognac noodles were becoming like a really great gluten-free alternative. And I was telling him about them and he was like, oh, there's like facial things here that are for that. And I was like, oh, I need them. Like, I want to try them. And yeah, I just got a couple and I just love them. And they're 100% biodegradable. All you need is water. Just pop them in the garden when they start to break down. And honestly, the best my skin and our customers are like struggling with acne. And then I'm like, just try it. No products, just water. And in like a couple of weeks time, they're like, holy shit, how is just water helping my skin so much when I've been spending fortunes on all these products that are just aggravating it and drying it out? So yeah, nature definitely is the best. And I come from an Italian background, so that's really drilled into us growing up is you don't need to apply chemicals and you know, even food, like you don't eat from a packet, you make it from scratch. And we've just gotten lazy as a society and forgotten that, you know, it's not always easy and it's definitely not better for us and for the environment. So yeah, it was such a cool little tool to come across. And then once I delved more into research and things like that, like looking at, I don't wear a lot of makeup. So for me, the makeup pad wasn't like a huge sell point for me to need in my personal life. But when I started to do the research of where women tend to, you know, buy these single-use products, what the main ones are, it is makeup wipes and cotton rounds and all those things. So to create the kit, I wanted to create something so that someone could come to the store and buy a kit that literally had everything in it for them so that they didn't need to shop anywhere else or they didn't need other items to remove their makeup or to cleanse and exfoliate. So yeah, it was a really organic process. And I think that's why for us it has worked so well, because we just had a different view. And it comes from a heart space, not, you know, a money-driven business. So, yeah.
I totally resonate with all of that as well, because my skin is super sensitive and I'm like you, I don't really wear much makeup, but I notice even if I change face creams, like the other week I ran out of my normal face wash that I have in the shower. So I just started using soap and then I started getting like an allergic reaction.
Yeah.
Or like if I go to my mum's house and I use her moisturizer instead of my moisturizer that's for like super sensitive skin, then I'll get an irritation. And I was at her house yesterday and instead of using her moisturizer that's filled with all these chemicals and stuff, I literally just got some olive oil out of the cupboard and just like put a tiny little like 2 drops on my hand, just rubbed it and put that on my face. Because for me, like as someone who has sensitive skin, like that's the thing, right? Nature has everything that we need. We don't have to put all these harsh chemicals that have alcohol in them and acidity stuff, like, and all regulators and like all of this stuff. And people just don't realize, because that's consumerism, right? We've been taught that you need to just put these creams on and that's going to make your pimples go away. That's going to stop your like blemishes or whatever it is. But in reality, if you just get back to the basics, that's really how you'll help yourself. And that's what you've seen with yourself as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's like over 10,000 single chemicals in a cleanser, like that end up going out into the ocean. And then we have, you know, the on effects of our marine life and the coral. Like that's not just from, you know, climate change or anything. Like we are doing that by, you know, choosing bad chemical based products and letting them go down the drain. Like,
it's crazy.
It's so crazy. It blows. Like the more I started to, and even still to this day, the more I research or listen to podcasts, I'm like, holy shit, like we are just so well, we're not uneducated, but we are taught, you know, like by consumerism and by marketing that these things that we need and they're going to help us, but they're really not.
Yeah, definitely. I'm super interested. So once you decided, or once you found this product that your brother brought back from Japan, you decided, okay, let's make these cute little kits that we can help people with so they don't need to buy anything else. How do you go about actually starting a product-based business? Because like I have two digital marketing agencies. I do coaching. I have very online businesses, but they're not product based. They're more service based, or I guess info product based, but not like a physical product. What does that process actually look like?
Daunting.
Yeah.
Well, we got, like, when we finally got the samples, it took ages to get it, maybe a year and a half to get it to a point that I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want. And then we did our first order, and in the lead up time, like I think like 3 months before we thought we would launch, I started an Instagram account and I started just sharing skin stuff, educational stuff, sustainability stuff, so that way we were going to be engaging with people who would probably buy our product if they had a similar interest. And I think that's a really important thing, because you can't launch a product and open the door on the first day and say, like, hey, we're here. Like, you wouldn't do that in a street, without some type of marketing. So we launched our Instagram a little bit before, and then started, like reposting other sustainable businesses and tips and things. And probably like 3 or 4 weeks before our launch date, I actually introduced the products and created like a pre-hype campaign so that people knew what we were about, what was coming, how to use them. They were pretty much ready to buy by the time that we launched. And I think that's a really important tip, because it does help, for that traction. And we ran a giveaway to, get more people on our page and seeing what we were doing. We collaborated with a few other companies that did like natural makeup and things like that to leverage off the collaboration relationship. And then, I guess when we launched and we used one influencer, because I come from a marketing background. I knew that was a really great strategy. I'd worked with her in the past. And it's just a good way to get our product in front of people who hadn't yet found us. And then now, even still to this day, like when we do restock orders, like it's terrifying, like, because you have so much stock and it is a big investment. And then, it takes like 6 to 8 weeks for them to be made, and then they come, and then it's just a constant, like every time we're almost close to sell out, I'm like, oh, like, do we order, like, how much more this time? Like, it's so hard to know, but it's just I don't know. I'm very intuitive, and I feel like I lead with my gut, and so far it's been okay.
That's lucky. So I can't believe that it took a year and a half to get the initial, like, to get the actual product and the kit correct. How did you, like, did you contact multiple manufacturers and they weren't right, or like the products weren't quite right, or like why did it take a year and a half?
So I guess it was from conception. So when we first came out with like the kits, we were thinking originally about the surf kit, and we stayed on that for a while, and then so it was like the whole period of thinking of what we're going to do. But with the actual tools, I think it was probably like a year, because you want to test how long they last for. And I wanted to do heaps of like, when I put the cognac sponge into the garden and it's going to biodegrade, I wanted to make sure how long it takes, like how long usually it would take for one to start to break down. Just a lot of research and testing was that whole year. At the start of the kit, I think we had like a makeup sponge, like to apply makeup, because they were really popular at the time. But then when we got closer to it, I was like, well, I don't wear makeup, and the whole point of the kit is to feel good within your skin without putting makeup on. So it was a lot of that type of stuff, like getting the exact what we wanted in the kit. And like the off branch is the cleanse kit, which is just the cognac sponges, and then the tone kit, which is the makeup pads and the small cotton rounds, like thinking of, what would be beneficial to a customer that only wanted to remove makeup. Like they should have one or two, or two instead of one. And just that type of like nitty gritty, making sure that when we brought it to the market, it was the best possible product that we could put together, and we knew as much about it as possible.
Yeah, I love that. I think it definitely sounds like every decision that you made, or everything that you did, was super intentional, super thought out, and like you're actually thinking about your consumer and what is best for them in their needs as people who are going to be your customers. So I love that.
Yeah.
In terms of your marketing, because you said how many single use have you stopped in?
Well, it was 8 million on our first birthday, which was on the 16th of September. So maybe more. We've been super busy this month.
Fantastic. That's amazing. In like just over a year, I guess in like 13 months, you've stopped that many. Like you've obviously grown so quickly, which is fantastic. And I see on your Instagram, you have some amazing influencers that you're working with.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you just started with one influencer. What did that look like for you in terms of reaching out to her, coming up with an agreement, or did you just give her a free product to try? Like, what did it look like for bringing on your first influencer?
Yeah, so I guess in that 4-week period that I talk about, that was the pre-hype before we actually opened our website. I gifted our products to maybe like 50 people, micro and bigger influencers, friends, family, like all that. And in that, I also brought on a few micro influencers after they tried the product and they were like, this is amazing, I really love it. We'll share a post when you launch. I brought them on as ambassadors, which to me is far more important than a one-off influencer, because they are ingrained. I think of them as like not even our employees, but they're the front of our business. Like, you know, they have every agreement is different and it works within the needs of the girls. But essentially we give them products regularly and they will just share it with their audience, and then we pay them or they make commission, whatever strategy works best for them. But then with the actual influencer, she was someone who I had worked with in my previous job, and I knew she was lovely. And I just reached out to her and said, this is what I'm doing. Would you like to try it and give me your feedback? And she wrote back and she was like, I love this. If you need help when you launch, I can help you out. And we paid her for the launch. And yeah, it's daunting. And even still to this day, when we book influencers, I'm like, like that money could be spent on an ad. And I know that there's like a return on investment there more than this. But I think it is important to just, you got to have an element of risk, and there's always going to be an element of unknown, outcomes. So yeah. And even still to this day, we don't pay a lot of influencers regularly. We probably have an influencer go once every fortnight, just because I think for me, it's really important to keep that authentic product and promotion. I don't want to be paying girls to just say that they like a product and every single day they're talking about products. It doesn't feel right for me, and it's not who I am as a person. I think that education is the reason why we have grown so big. We are very open and raw and real. We always are on our Instagram just being ourselves. And when I have a breakout, I'm hopping on and I'm talking about it. I'm talking about how I'm using the products to help with that, or what other things I'm using to help with that. And that's how our ambassadors are. And I think that that's why it works so well. They're very similar to me. Or, they're in the skincare, they work in skincare, or they're makeup artists, and they actually genuinely love the product as if it's a part of them. So that works far better for us.
Yeah. I love that. Again, it seems to be a theme for this episode, and in everything that you're doing is sort of authenticity, and making sure you always remain true to the original reason as to why you wanted to get started, or your core values as a person, and making sure that everyone that you work with or everyone that you bring into the brand, or bring into the space, the arena of your brand, is in alignment with everything that you believe and everything that the brand stands for, which I love. I
think it's important because, as like working in marketing, I have seen the flip side of that, where people just are a bit more ego driven, and they see an influencer and like, we want to work with her. Like, their alignment is nothing, like they don't align to the brand. It's not going to work. And it's very hard to educate CEOs and owners and say, like, that person is great, but they're a fitness model. They're not going to pick up a skincare product. Like, you've got to think about who it is that you're engaging with. Don't just get caught up in the amount of followers that they have. Like, they might have a lot of male followers and they're not going to buy skincare. Like, you have to really be strategic and let go of the ego and just try and focus on people who are similar to your ideal customer as well. And our ideal customer is someone who cares about the environment, cares about their skin, and hopefully has a bit of self-worth and is happy to be makeup free and, that way inclined.
I love that. Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I would love if we could move into a little bit more sort of like tactical advice or strategies. You mentioned before we started recording that one thing that you really try to focus on in your business is systems and automation, which I am obsessed with because I'm the same in my business. I'm like, okay, if this can have a system or a process, or if this can be automated, then like, let's just let the computer do it, because then it takes up so much less space in our brain and we don't have to stress about that.
Yeah.
What are some of the systems or processes or automations that you have used to be able to scale and grow your business so quickly in the last year?
Yeah, so I think a key one for me is obviously our email campaign software. We use OmniSend at the moment, which I really like. And in the back of that, there is an automation section. So essentially, when someone buys our face kit, they fall into a funnel that they get a series of emails that go over a year. Their first one is thank you for the purchase and a little bit about Dave and myself. And I think that builds that authentic customer relationship. They feel, involved in the business. And then at about 3 weeks, when the product probably should have arrived to them by now, they get information about how to look after their products. And then at 3 months, when their cognac sponge is probably starting to break down, they get an email to educate them on the process of that, and then a discount code so that they replace it. And then at 6 months, we tell them how many single-use makeup wipes they've stopped from using the reusable pad. And then at 1 year, we say happy 1 year. Yeah. And like, it is time to replace the whole kit, which is only kind of just happening now because we're only 1 year. But that one is a huge one. And we are constantly getting customers saying like how personal that makes it feel, and it's so educational. And then also within our just emails and for my like customer service stuff and for influencers and wholesaling, I have so many canned response set up in Gmail so that when I get an email of someone who maybe wants to wholesale us, all I do is press the canned response and just put their name in and say, hey, Susie, like blah, 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 all the information's there. I don't have to think about it. If we were to, the reason why I did that was one, because when we started, I was still working a full-time job and I needed to, get as much work done as possible in the few hours that I could every single day. But then once I came full-time into the business, I set up those systems because we were growing so quickly. And I knew that at a very soon point, we would bring on a staff member, and I didn't want to be too busy to not train them on the correct responses. So that's why I set that up, is so when we have the person start with us, I don't need to worry about, are they saying the right thing? Is it my language? Is it this? Is it that? It's literally there for them to use. And it works so well. Like, I just spend a couple of hours, on one day of the week, and I send out a bunch of wholesaling emails, a bunch of like influencer stuff, and it's all there. I don't have to think about it too much. It's all set up. I don't use automations in our social media because the algorithm tends to break down when you do that. So I always authentically post, but I do save content to our draft section so that when I'm like a bit on the run, it's there and I don't need to think about that, which is handy. And I don't think that the algorithm picks up too much on that at the moment.
Yeah.
I also use a program called Asana, which is a project development software, I think. And that is got, every single person that we've gifted products to, that we're working with, all of our wholesale accounts. So at any given moment, if we were to bring on a staff member and they get an email from this person, they can type their name in and understand exactly what the relationship is and where we're up to. Yeah, which it takes time to set up. But now, like, my partner still works his full-time job, but when he has time off, he helps me and it's all there. And he's like, this is amazing. Like, I don't need to ask you 45 questions. I just hop on and I know what we're doing. So they're definitely like game-changing tips for our business. And we don't we're about to actually take on someone tomorrow who's having her first day packing orders with us, but she will be learning those things and it makes me feel so comfortable. It's not like a stress of like, when am I going to have time to teach her because we're so busy? It's literally just going to be so seamless and easy for her to know what to do.
I love that. And I think it's so important as you are growing, especially if you're growing quickly, to make sure you do it as you go. Don't ignore it, and then when it is time to hire somebody else and you're already stressed about bringing them on, maybe because of the money or whatever it is, it's a big scary leap, and then you have to look at training them in absolutely every single area of the business as well. Like that just adds such a huge stress to what you already have to do. Whereas if you've already documented it, like it sounds like you already have some systems and processes set up that allow them to just be able to jump in, know exactly what's going on with absolutely everyone, and then they have no questions, which is fantastic. Yeah. I love that.
It's been a big, because even coming up, like when we've been like, do we hire someone? Like how much more can we push ourselves? And we're just so exhausted. We're doing like 15-hour days at the moment. And I was like, you know what, it's time. And it just happened very organically. She's a friend of a friend who already does that type of work, and she knows our brand. And she just messaged us and was like, I love you guys. I'm in Burleigh. Can I come in? And I was like, yep, done. Like,
wow.
That's
so amazing.
It'll be so nice to, you know, focus on the product development and growing the business, because right now I'm just trying to keep my head above water, and it's hard. Like it's very hard, you know, in startup phase, and like the cash flow is always, you know, we buy products and I'm like, where's all that money? And then, you know, we have a good week or two and I'm like, oh yeah, we can give staff member. And then I'm like, like, I don't know.
I love that. But I guess that's just one of the stresses of having a business, right? It's that trying to find that fine line between like, okay, when is it time to outsource some of these tasks and how much can I do myself? And I think if you're working 15 hours a day, it's definitely time. And I'm glad that she's starting tomorrow, because we don't want you to burn out.
Oh, I know. It's just like, I'm so excited.
Yeah. Amazing. Awesome. So if people have been listening to the episode, they want to potentially try out some of your kits or your products, where can they find you online?
So we are on Instagram at SabiaCo, which is SABBIACO. And our website is sabiaco.com. So yeah, you can find us there. Come and say hello.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the episode. I loved having you on because we actually haven't really had anyone on that has had more of a product-based business. Usually I talk to business owners that are very service-based. So it's been fantastic to hear about that whole process, pretty much from start to finish, which is, well, start to your first 13 months. So thank you so much for joining me on the show, Katie.
That's all right. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. All right, guys, until the next episode, we'll see you later. Bye.